I know you're excited to review today's movie.
Yeah, we Faizel, funny enough, had never seen Predator before,
Nope.
which I just assume everyone's seen it at least 100 times like me, but
Do you know what? I've seen Prey, the one that came out recently, but I have not seen Predator 1. I've not seen Predator 2. I haven't seen Alien versus Predator. Those are Alien versus Predator 2, right? Never seen
yeah.
any of those. So
Well, we
I
got
feel
a
like
bunch
I
of new
need to
movies on your
like
list.
fix that.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen Predator so many times. It's one of my favorite movies, but I watched this as an excuse to watch it again. I was like, well, we're going to be discussing it, so I should watch it again. I probably watch it like every few months, um,
You gotta have
since I
one of
was
those movies. It's
12.
like a comfort movie, right?
Yeah, it's like a comfort movie. I remember the first time it was like when I was very little, probably like 8 or something. It was on TV, and I remember I was looking. It was like on a Sunday, and I was looking forward to watching it. I was going to watch it with my dad, and at the last minute, he's like, "You know what? I'm thinking it's probably too violent, so I'm not going to let you watch it." So for years, not years, but I was probably a teenager before I
Because you
finally
couldn't
saw it.
watch movies on demand when we were growing
Yeah,
up. You had to
yeah.
wait till they were on TV or in the theater. Like,
Yeah, so yeah, well, it wasn't just as easy as doing it behind his back. I had to wait until I was old enough to rent the video, and
yeah.
so even part of me now is like, hey, guess what, Dad? I'm gonna watch Predator, and you're not gonna stop me.
I've seen it a bunch of times, and I've made my own violent movies.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm kind of glad you got to watch it, and yeah, I kind of want to just discuss it because it is. I don't know if I'd say it's unique, but it did come from a period of time in the '80s where I think we touched on this in the last episode where thing it was the action movies were about big, huge, tough guys acting super macho,
Oh man,
and this movie is kind of the epitome of that.
Carl Weathers and Schwarzenegger's arms in this movie take up so much room in the frame. Like they are massive human beings. But
Yeah,
like, who played man? But like, it's wild. In one scene, they have Arnie standing next to the Predator, and like, I'm not sure if it was like a tall guy or if they had the guy on stilts or if it was just like a camera thing. But like, Arnie looks small next to the Predator, which is no small feat.
yeah, they had this really, really tall guy in the suit. He was just like
How
7
tall
foot
is that
something.
guy when he makes like Arnie look like a short guy?
Yeah, he was just one of those guys. It might have even been, I could be wrong, but it might have been the same guy in the alien costume or what, something like that. But yeah, there's this guy. You can look him up online, and he's just like 7'6" or some
Jeez.
crazy thing. Originally, it was supposed to be Jean-Claude Van Damme as the Predator. There's actually footage of him, like they shot stuff
Really?
of him in it. Of course, he's not a very tall guy, and
No.
it looked pretty stupid. And they correctly were like, "Okay, this isn't working," and then they recast some enormous guy in the costume. But yeah, the Predator, not only was he big, but just his movements, the way he moved, was very cool.
Word decides. Do you think the scenes where he's invisible and he's cloaked up? I was watching that through and I was just like, do you think that was like a guy in a green screen suit and then they painted over that? Like, how do you think they got that effect?
I don't know how they did that. It was a different era with more limited special effects, so I'm not sure how they did some of it, but it kind of looked good, even as his heat vision.
Yeah.
It wasn't up to like today's standards, but I kind of prefer it in a way. Like it was just kind of simple effects, and yeah, his like wavy invisible mirage look. I'm not sure how they did it, but it looked cool.
I feel like you could replicate it, at least today, technology wise. You could replicate it. It looked really good even still, but like you could do it in a green screen suit, I think I would
Yeah,
imagine. And
there's probably simpler ways to do it
I
now,
was
but
watching it through and I was just like, I wonder how they would have done this in the 80s. Can you imagine? That would have been like days of shooting just to get it there.
yeah, I'm sure they put a lot of work into it, and it was, I wouldn't say revolutionary, but like just that look of the predator, just that little tick 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 sound he makes, and just the
Yep.
invisible way he looks and his heat vision,
His
that still
face,
it influences a lot of ththings these days. And yeah, so does the the way his face looks, like
it
that
looks
influences a
very
lot of
good.
alien makeup.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
that
look
looks
like a
very good.
mask or a costume or anything at all. It looks like a big space bug.
Yeah, they really did a good job on that. And the story itself like was fairly simple. there's a big action scene near the beginning, and then it's just the alien, the predator picking off the guys one by one. They didn't need, kind of as the series goes, they start adding like more and more elements and making it more and more complex. And I think it almost like takes away for it. I miss it when it was just a simple story of like a group of
Alien
guys in
shows
the
up.
jungle getting picked off.
I have to say, Bill Duke, man. I've seen him in so many movies. He is the least likely like quote unquote actor looking guy. But he always does his job so well. He's the guy who was like with the giant spinning rail gun and he was just like firing it. He always does such an amazing job when he's on screen.
Yeah, and I kind of like because they have that thing in there. They never really got into the guy's like backstory, which I like because you don't need it. You just
No,
here's
no, no.
them doing stuff, but they kind of touched him and Jesse the Body Ventura. They were like very good friends. There's even I've read some online things where people are assuming they had some sort of like gay relationship, and that's why they had their thing. Which I think that's I mean maybe, but I think that's just to read too much into it. I think they were just good friends, and it kind of shows that as tough as these guys are, they do have a soft side, right? And his like best friend basically gets killed, and he's
Yeah, and he's
noticeably
like
upset
all
about it.
fucked up about it.
Yeah, which is like it just shows that as macho as they are, they're not like completely one note characters that have no like humanity to them. It's like, you know, they do. He even says he's like, Schwarzenegger's like he was a good soldier. Bill Duke says like, yeah, he was my friend. It's kind of like they just have that soft moment, which just kind of adds to the movie.
It also shows them scared, which so I thought this was interesting when I watched it was like it shows these big tough guys and they're like charging into the jungle to rescue these guys and take out the drug dealers. I can't remember. I was gonna look this up if it was like Iran Contra. I was trying to figure out what period that the kill the drug dealers was happening in. But anyways, they're going in and they're like super confident of themselves. They're super like, we don't care. We're just gonna mow everything down. And then after like three or four encounters with the predator, they're like terrified and they're like moving slower and they're like keeping their eyes out open. And it was a very interesting shift seeing that and seeing like these big giant like can't do nothing guys like feeling like scared and trapped and like almost getting into fights with each other just because of how much they're arguing.
Yeah, I think it's like they've dealt with humans before. They've been in gun battles and they're very good at what they do and they're confident, but now they're dealing with something that they've never dealt with before and they don't even know what it is. But they're smart enough to quickly pick up on it that it's like, okay, he's using the trees and it's not human. And even guys like Billy, who are like, the toughest of the tough guys, all of a sudden he's like, he even says, he's like, I'm scared, like we're all
Mhm.
gonna die. So they're like, oh shit, like our toughest guy is scared. Um, and it just kind of it shows that like it wouldn't have worked so well if they didn't show any fear, if they were just tough the
No,
whole time. It's like they kind of knew what they were in for, and it just kind of shows they have a human side, but it also makes you cheer for them because they're like, fuck this, we're gonna fight back against this thing. They're not just gonna run and cower, they're gonna try to set traps for it. They're gonna, try different things. And at the end, Schwarzenegger is like, you know what, like all my guys are dead. I'm gonna like full on fight this thing by myself.
well, I thought that was really cool when when he figures out, oh, the mud can hide me, and then he's like, oh, damn it, spoiler, by the way.
Yeah.
It's a 40-year-old movie, so spoilers. But like when he figures that out, and then he starts making all the traps and stuff, and it was just like there's mood shifts in the movie that you can see where like it's like all adrenaline and all like testosterone, and then they meet the predator and they have a couple interactions, and suddenly it's like very claustrophobic and scared. And then Schwarzenegger finds out that he can hide from it, and then it feels a little uplifting and like, I'm gonna look this up right now, but I was also like the soundtrack like also plays along with that. There's a lot of moments where there's like that like quick violin stab or something like that when they have their like tense moments, but then towards the end, everything starts to get super uplifting.
Yeah, the music reminded me a lot of like Rambo 2, Rambo 3. It was around that same era where it was like similar type of macho
Alan
kind of movies.
Silvestri.
Yeah, Alan Silvestri. Yeah, it had like the perfect soundtrack. Because I remember you when we discussed Heat, and you
Mhm.
were saying how you hated the soundtrack because it was like distracting. So it's good to see a movie where the soundtrack like fits the movie.
And it's not in the background. It's not like, because there's movies where the soundtrack is in the background and it just plays a little bit. This is like a character in the movie, and it like, you can't ignore the soundtrack, and it works really well.
Absolutely. And it's like I always say that like if you could pick a scene that epitomizes the tough guy, musclehead action movies of the 80s, it's the scene where they're all just shooting at the trees for a solid 2 minutes. It's like the 80s peaked with that scene in that movie, and it was never the same again. And it's such a good scene that yeah, anyone who hasn't watched the movie has to watch it to see what we're
Oh
talking
man.
about.
Bill Dukes does not stop screaming through that whole scene. How many takes do you think they did of that? Like, of him, they're just like, all right, Bill, do it again.
Yeah, and it's kind of he keeps holding down the trigger on that minigun even
Yep.
after it's out of bullet. It just keeps spinning and spinning silently for a little while before he finally stops. And I think that just kind of it just sums up how scared they were, but also like it was such a it's one of those scenes where when people talk about the movie, they always like reference that part because
It's
it's
pretty arresting. It's like the peak 80s. I think you're right. It's where like all the explosions and everything leads up to just like, here you go, motherfuckers. 2 minutes of a rail gun just clearing away bushes.
and it's kind of different now watching because I've seen it so many times, so I know all the surprises. But the first time people were watching that in the theater, where you first see the predator like take off its helmet, you see its
Hmm.
face for the first time, and even just the way they build it, because at first all you see is the predator's point of view, like with his heat vision. You don't even see
So you
him, and
don't even
then
know
when
what's underneath. You
later,
can kind of see the outline in like some of the invisible moments. You can kind of see what it looks like, but not even.
yeah, and it's like, and then slowly, I think it's by the time you see him, Schwarzenegger covered in the mud, I think that's when you first really see the predator not camouflaged, and you see him walking around. You see a full view of him head to toe. Um, and then after that, then you see his face for the first time. But those are all like very good reveals. And it seems like in the newer movies, it's kind of like they assume you know what it looks like, so they just don't even try to build it. They just
They just
here's the
go on with
predator,
it.
here's three predators or however many they have, and it just doesn't have that pacing that made the first one so good.
That is fair. I mean, I know everything, even going into watching Predator, never having watched it, I knew the story beats that were coming just because it's so much in pop culture. I have no idea what I'm going to go into with Predator 2. I don't think I know any like reference to it at all. I'm going in with a blank slate.
Which is good. I might even watch it tonight after the hockey game.
Hell yeah.
Um, just to be I love I know there's people that don't like Predator 2, but I freaking love it.
I,
Um,
you know what, especially the second movie sometimes, especially if it like expands on the story a little bit. You don't need to go too far, but if you expand just a little bit, I find the second one is usually Hellraiser 2 is my favorite Hellraiser of all the Hellraisers.
yeah, that's not sure if I'd agree, but
Are you a Hellraiser 3
I don't
fan?
disagree. Yeah, like the first three, it's like my favorite. It changes day to day, but
Fair enough.
we'll do Hellraiser on a different episode.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, we'll see. I'm interested to see what you think of Predator 2 because it does like changes it from the jungle to Los Angeles, and it goes from a
Oh,
small group of guys to there's gangs and police and CIA and government agencies. It really
and is it still one
expands a
Predator?
lot, and there's still just the one Predator. Um, so it could have gone. Honestly, it has a lot of elements in it that I normally don't like how they complicate simple things, but they did it so well, at least in my opinion, that it's a good movie. But I'll be interested to see what you happen to think of it.
All right. Well, I mean, I know, like you said before, you have no perfect 10, and like I'm waiting. One day there might, but where would you put Predator? Is that a 10?
It's I'd say 9 point
Nine
something. Yeah.
9.9.
Yeah, 9.9. Yeah, maybe not that. Yeah, 9.3. I don't know. I don't know how official these ratings are, but that's kind of what I'd give it. It's like it's always been one of my favorite. Funny enough, Elena Hlebnikova, who we had on the show a couple episodes back, is a big Predator fan too, and her and I have had some
Any
discussions
discussion?
about it.
I want to get into the lore of Predator because, like I said, I've watched Prey and I've watched Predator 1, so I've seen either ends of the spectrum now. And like, obviously, one takes place in 1988, which was then present day, and then the other takes place in pre-contact Canada. I want to know what the hell happens in between those two situations.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where the predator would come to Earth as one of the many
Or a
places it would
hunting
go.
ground, right?
It would just come, yeah, once in a while. And it got to the point where, back in the more primitive cultures, they had no way of like kind of reporting it. But once it started happening in more modern day, that's why by part two, it's like people are aware of it. The military's aware of it. So they're kind
Okay.
of starting to deal with it because I guess you can only come and start picking people off with advanced technology so many times before,
Before someone notices and like, wait a minute.
yeah, they're going to find bodies and be like, okay, this is not a human weapon.
I mean,
So
Arnie got away. I assume he went to tell everybody.
yeah, and actually in part two, he was supposed to come back for part two, but he ended up, for whatever reason, he didn't, over money or something, he didn't come back. So they had Gary Busey playing the character he was supposed to be.
Wait a minute,
Um,
Gary Busey is in Predator 2? I did not know that. Oh my
yeah,
God, I
yeah,
gotta
he's
watch this.
yeah, it's the good part. But yeah, there's a lot like they really expanded like throughout there's comic books and everything. They really expanded on
Well, there was Alien
the
versus Predator
lore.
comic books, right? There was a whole
Oh
spin-off
yeah,
of that stuff.
there's that. Yeah, and then I mean there's just straight up Predator comics. There's also Alien comics. And one of my I had this omnibus. It was like a really thick omnibus Predator comic that I read, and it was kind of cool. And one of the endings was I really liked the ending because it was the Predator was in like New York City or whatever and killing people, and all of a sudden like these Predator ships appeared, and it kind of was leading towards like, oh, it's going to be all out war between the humans and the Predators. But then it started raining, and the Predators just left, and then they're kind of like, oh yeah, like they're not. It's not personal to them. They're not here to go to war. They're just here to hunt. So if the weather turns bad, they're just gonna leave.
That's actually really funny. I didn't even think about that. They're like,
Yeah,
well,
so it
the
just
game
kind of
was
ended
called for
on a
weather.
yeah, and it's just like, oh yeah, they're not here. Like they have no personal vendetta against humans. They're not even gonna it's not like they're gonna put up a fight against our military because they they just don't want to. They're just here to hunt. So if it's things turn against them, they're just gonna go back home. So um yeah, so what would you give Predator on a scale of 1 to 10?
I think I'd give it a nine. I give it a very strong nine. What I mostly liked about it, and I feel like people I think you were touching on it too a little bit through your thing, but like people get really into. I watched Late Night with the Devil a while back, and I was talking to someone about it, and they didn't like it because they felt it didn't go deep enough into the lore and into the story. Whereas I liked it because it was such a fun and enjoyable movie. And that's the same way I feel about Predator 1 is like it's so fun and it's so enjoyable and like it doesn't have to be super smart and super intellectual and all the way up here. Like sometimes I just like seeing explosions and like I don't know if people count on that enough how enjoyable a movie can be sometimes.
Yeah, and it's like I like even the very opening scene, like the first shot of Predator is like you just see the spaceship fly by and it launches a little pod, and that's it, nice and simple. By the time you get to part four, like the Predator, all of a sudden there's like this like space battle going on and they're flying through a portal. Like they just have to make every moment like way over the top.
How many
Whereas the
Predator
Predator was
movies
like
are there?
simple.
How many
Sorry.
Predator movies are there total? Like Predator, not counting the Alien versus and so forth.
There's Prey is number five.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And then there's the two Aliens versus Predator. Yeah, it's Predator, Predator 2, Predators, The Predator, and then Prey.
Oh, so they did the aliens thing, huh? That's so
Yeah,
confusing.
as someone who does it, who didn't follow along as the movies came out, like they would not have, they wouldn't, other than Predator 1 and 2, like you really can watch them in different order, I guess, because they don't, like, they kind of got, I don't know, it makes it confusing, but
It does, because I always used to think I was just like, is Alien and Aliens just the same movie? When I was a kid, I was just is it just like a different name situation?
yeah, it'd be hard to. It makes it easier when you number them, but it's one of those things. I mean, you could kind of look it up online and see the order, but even
Yeah,
with Prey, like Prey's the prequel, so technically you could watch it before, but you could watch it at any point because it's just a standalone story.
I would agree. If you want to know what we think of Predator 2, tune on in.